Hey guys, this is Billy Davidson, Davidson Pressure Wash Painting here in Hammond, Louisiana. We hope y'all all enjoyed your Christmas break, your Christmas holidays. If y'all celebrate Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah as well, Merry Christmas, and also Happy New Year's with a couple more days. New Year's Eve will be here. Today's Sunday, December 29th, 2019, Sunday afternoon. The temperature out here in Louisiana has been warm. Yeah, I would say in the 70s, really warm for this time of the year. But more importantly, it's been really wet. So we haven't been doing any parking lot striping. We are booked up on our parking lot striping jobs. We got several here to do in Louisiana and a few more in another state and maybe even out in Alabama. We're working on a deal out there too as well. Alabama, Mobile area is only, I think it's about 2.5 hours away, so it's worth the drive. But generally, we stay overnight if we're working out in that area. So it looks like I do have that job lined up. I'm just waiting on a PO to come in, but you never know what might happen between now and the PO arriving in my email. But so we got a lot going on. We got another giant job that I landed for early January. I'm going to be shooting some video on that. It has to do with a combination of power washing and parking lot striping. That's going to be really exciting to shoot some video on that. So if you want to be sure and catch that. Those videos, make sure you like, subscribe, and as YouTube tells me, ring that notification bell and go ahead and press that, and that way you'll be notified as soon as I upload. A lot of times, the guys, I've talked to the guys, we timestamp a couple things and I check with them. As soon as I upload a video, it goes through the algorithms at YouTube, and generally within about 120 to 180 seconds, they are notified of it, even if they are all the way across the country. So if you don't ring that notification bell, you may not ever get notified. So you might miss something really important. It could help you out and bring in a lot of extra revenue to your business. Because that's what we're doing here. We like teaching, and I wish I'd have had a mentor or a teacher when I first started, and I didn't. So this was back in the early 90s when I started. As a lot of y'all know, back then there was no such thing as YouTube, Google, Amazon, nothing, no internet. I think Microsoft Windows 95 was a big deal when after about 2 or 3 years of when I first started power washing. So we moved some of our books. We had what we call ledgers. I'm probably getting a little bit over my head here, but we used to put all our stuff in ledgers where we would write the name, address, the amount, and what date, and just all the information in ledgers. And when Windows 95 came out, we moved to that. So that's how long I've been in the business. So y'all guys that's been in the business for the last 4 years, y'all have came in at the industry at a perfect time. I mean, y'all came in and then rode the wave to the top. Some of the guys that's been in business 8 to 10 years, you may notice that you have reached a plateau in your business around that 8-year mark. And it's really common in the power washer business. Also, it's common in a lot of other sister industries, other power washer business like landscaping. I've talked to a lot of landscapers, and we got a lot of landscapers that have subscribed to the channel here in the past few months, and really appreciate that. We love our landscapers. A lot of those guys have reached their plateau to about that 8 to 10 year mark. And if you find yourself in that little slump or lump or funk, however you want to say it, there's a way out. You might be comfortable there, but if you want to take your business to a new level, for coming out of 2019 into 2020, feel free to reach out to me. I might give you a lot of good little hints, because I went through that about 10 years ago. So I can look back on it and see what worked when I was reached that plateau and what pushed me, excelled me over. I could have just stayed there. It would have been easy, but I did some difficult things to push my business forward. And now, a decade later, it has paid dividends that are unbelievable financially. And also, unbelievable, when you able to choose and pick what jobs you walk on and what jobs you walk away from. That is also important. We don't power wash every job that comes into our phone. We don't parking lot stripe every job. And I used to have to, but now I don't have to. And that means a lot when you're working at a place that you want to work at. You're working at people that you want to work for, and you're making the money that you want to make. All that plays in a part of you being happy and having a passion for your business, whether it's parking lot striping, whether it's pressure washing, or whether it's a landscaping or concrete repairs or roof cleaners, any of this. I don't care if you're a window cleaner even. We got a lot of window cleaners that watch the channel as well, and that's also kind of what I'm referring to. You know, once you're in the business for a few years, you kind of reach that plateau. So what I want to talk about today is parking lot striping first, and then we're gonna move into some pressure washing questions. I get a lot of these questions about parking lot striping machines, and over and over and over again. I'm happy to answer them, but this may help a lot of the guys out there. If you're doing some research and you don't have time to call me, or if you call me and I don't answer, you might can refer back to this video for some information. Entry-level parking lot striping machines at Davidson Pressure Wash Painting, Hammond, Louisiana. What machine would you recommend for entry-level machine parking lot striping small parking lots, such as, i.e., dentist offices, chiropractor's offices? I understand the question here. He wants to know, and this came in about 3 days ago, so hopefully he'll see this video. Steve 0707, wherever that's at. I'm not sure where Steve is from. It doesn't. That's his screen name. Parking lot striping machine, entry level machine. There's two trains of thoughts here. Let's go down both paths. Let's say you get a parking lot striping machine, and you only want to spend a couple grand in it. You would probably end up with a Titan 850, possibly a 4-stroke. I'd recommend a 4-stroke over the 2-stroke. I played with both of them before, not extensively. It was just a couple that a rep had that he was having some issues with it, and he was gonna sell them as used, and I played with them, kind of got them cleaned up and ready for him to move out the warehouse. The 2-stroke, I messed with one of those about a year and a half ago. It was decent, you know. We had to work with the viscosity of our paint. You know, it only sprayed latex, which is fine. For most applications, you know, the latex is fine. But we did have to thin the paint down a little for that 2-stroke to push it through the system. And the reason being, if you can follow this analogy, if the viscosity of the paint is the thinness of it, if it's a little thick, you know, the machine, you know, you start the machine, you pressurize the machine, and the pump turns off, and then you have about 50 feet of hose wrapped around, you know, the little hose holder on the parking lot stripe machine. All that's pressurized. So when you pull the trigger, you have something called burst pressure, and the hose is pressurized. So you have about 50 feet of hose pressurized. Now, how much paint is in there? Maybe a pint or two, maybe a pint and a half of paint that's already pressurized and ready to go, and the pump is disengaged at this point. So you pull the trigger. Now, this is with a 2-stroke, if you can follow my analogy here. The 2-stroke, at some point, will have to engage with the pump. Let's say your parking line is about 20 feet long. So about halfway through the line, depending on how fast you're walking with this little 2-stroke Titan 850, the pump's going to have to re-engage as soon as it detects that pressure drop. Now, after about that 8 or 10 foot mark, if your paint is a little thick, and a lot of guys that you might be seeing this happen with your 2-stroke Titan 850s, that line will start to narrow down. And the reason being, there's two reasons here behind this that I have kind of ran into. And it might be, you might want to try this. It's cheap. It's almost free to try it. So first, I would thin the paint a little bit more, but walk a little bit slower. So you bring in the viscosity of the paint down versus it being too thick or a little too thick. You add a little water to it, stirring it real good, and make it a little thinner. Now, two things that's going to do is going to help the pump that up to a certain PSI and a certain volume, because it's a small pump with that 2-stroke engine, and that 2-stroke engine isn't really all that torquey. So that pump's going to need to engage and then catch up really quick with the PSI. So if it doesn't, if the paint's a little thick, your line width is going to vary at somewhere right around the middle of that line, depending on how fast you're walking. Let's say if you're spraying a 4-inch line, it's going to probably narrow down to about a 3.5. Doesn't seem like all that big of a deal, but it is, because you're going to be able to see the old line not being covered completely. So try to thin that paint down a little bit, walk a little bit slower, and that should solve most of that issue. Another fix to that issue would be to get a little bit smaller spray tip. You might want to try like a 215, 216, 217. You can even try some 3s. See what the recommended spray tip on the paint that you're using. I could give you an exact spray tip to use, but I don't know the exact paint you might be using. You might be using a Sherwin-Williams brand. You might be using a Pittsburgh brand. Of course, Lowe's and Home Depot also sells latex paint. So go back and refer back to that manufacturer label on the paint can that you got. If you need some help with it, feel free to reach out and I'll definitely help you with that. But generally speaking, you want to use a little bit smaller tip if you having that line variation with, or just at least try it. And that should restrict that flow just enough to keep the PSI and the volume restricted back in your hose while the pump's still catching up, to keep the line width from narrowing down on you. And then you'll see where the line goes from narrow to wide to narrow to wide as that pump engages and disengages. Now this is true throughout an 18 or 20 foot parking line. Now if you have some nose to nose parking where you're doing that center line, you may see a lot of variation. And that is a problem with the Titan 850 two-stroke. Now, will it do some doctor's offices, chiropractor's office? Absolutely, but you're gonna have to walk a little slower. You're gonna have to change the viscosity of your paint and probably change your tips, and you can get it done, no problem. Now, a remedy to that is also to go with the four-stroke machine. Titan also offers that 850 in a four-stroke version, which I played with that one too. And that one did not have the issues as bad as the two-stroke. They are a few $100s more, $300 or $400 more. But, that being said, it was a little less, a little more forgiving with paint viscosity and a tip size, just because that four-stroke seemed to me a little bit more torquey than the two-stroke. So when the pump did engage, when the PS dropped, the engine RPMs did not dip so bad. It just had a little bit more torque to kind of maintain that RPM. Now that's the Titan 850s. They also make a Titan 1850. If I had to throw my money down today, if I was a newbie, I would probably go for that 1850. It's the big brother of the 850. It's not going to give you any trouble, and I believe you can spray all paint to those as well versus the 850 only latex. A step above that is the 2800 Titans, and that's the ones we run. We run the 2800 series. Those machines are about, I would say about $4,000 for that machine, and you're not going to be able to outwork that machine. That machine will work you into the ground. Basically, on 30% power, 30% pressure settings, we can stripe as fast as we want to stripe. Obviously, if you want to go up to a 100% power setting, you can do 2 guns and that sort of thing. So that being said, at 100% power on that 2800, you could do 2 guns. You can you can run behind the thing. You're just not going to stripe on that much power, so keep that in mind. Now they also make a Titan 3500. I know the numbers are a little confusing here. You got that Titan 850, you got the Titan 1850, you got the Titan 2800 series, so you got another 2850 in that series. We have one of those machines as well, and it's a phenomenal machine. They can be rebuilt for a few $100s. They spray all base, they spray latex with no problem. The only thing they not recommend is spray chlorinated rubber, which is kind of not too common around my area anymore. They make a Titan 3500. I have not touched one of those machines personally, but a couple people told me they're phenomenal. They're a hydraulic version of it. I want to say that's under $4,000. I'll have to look for that as well. And then also you got the Greco versions. You got the Grecos anywhere from the small cheap ones, so around 2,500, all the way up to $10,000 with the auto layouts. I wouldn't recommend doing all of that right at first, unless you just have a big bankroll to play with. I would say get in as cheap as you can and then go from there. But like I said, if I was going to throw down some money, I would probably stay away from the tinier machines, especially if you're going to do some larger parking lots. Now, and look, if that's all you want to do is some small dentist office, little small hometown banks, sure, I think that Titan 850 would surely do you good enough, It's going to be time consuming. You're not going to be able to run in there and knock out a parking lot in 20 minutes like we can. Like a little small bank parking lot might take you a couple hours fooling with it, and But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you still make a ton of money. Let's say if you did a small bank for $800 or $900 and you only did 2 a month, and you had this little machine, 1 month you can pay for the machine, and then if you take good care of it, obviously it lasts forever. And I think those little pumps are rebuildable from what I read online. I'm not sure how much the kits are, that sort of thing, or if it's just at that point, maybe send it back to someone to have it rebuilt. You might want to check in that. So that's what I want to talk about, parking lot striping, entry-level machines. Like we talked about the Titan 850. It's got the 2-stroke version, and they got the 4-stroke version. And then the Titan 1850, and then the Titan 2800 series. And then also there's a Titan 3500 power liner. You might want to look into that. And then also the Greco line. I personally have never bought a Greco parking lot stripe machine, but I've used plenty of Greco airless sprayers for exterior painting, and they're top of the line. I'm not gonna knock them. They are pricey though, and that's one thing that you want to look at as well is when you're getting into it, your price entry level that you're comfortable with, or just in general how much you think you can make with the machine, in your given area. So remember about your line width. If you have that variation in line with those smaller machines, it could be your paint viscosity and or U-tip size. It could be both. I had another question about parking lot striping real quick. How often to change your tip? This is a really, really important question. And I see a lot of guys out there running your tips way, way too long. If you're using latex, I would change my tip anywhere between, if you're filtering your paint, probably about every 100 gallons. I kind of change mine at about 75 gallons. I have changed them sooner than that. Just depends on if they give me any trouble. And remember, when you buy that new tip, they're gonna have that little plastic orifice deal that goes behind the tip guard, and that's just as important to change that as well when you do your tip. If you are uncomfortable with doing it, I think I have a video here on the channel. Might have been from, I'm trying to think of the date, so you can go back and look at it. I want to say it was the end of 2018. You might could find a video or two about those tip guards. If you can't find it, I'll give you my number at the end of the video. You reach out to me and I can walk you through it on the phone or refer you back to that link on the video. So remember those tips. And why do we want to change our tips? That was, the guy was asking how often and why. Reason why is the edges of your line won't be as sharp as they need to be. And also you will use 10 times the paint, not 10 times, so it's an exaggeration, but you'll use a hell of a lot of more paint than what you would need to. And the reason why we don't want to do that, if some people might say, well, isn't more paint better? No, not really. What will happen, that paint dries, the top layer of it will dry, but then the middle layers won't dry as quick, and it gets something called hot tire pickup. So you want that proper millage on it so the paint cures all about the same time. If you just dumping paint on a parking lot, the paint's not gonna want to dry in the middle. And you may have experienced this if you ever popped a little paint bubble that's been off of like a staircase or something. Years and years and years later, that paint bubble can still be wet on the inside of it. The outside will be dry and hard, but if you take that little paint drip and open it up, it's still gooey on the inside. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it can go on for years. And what happens that the outer shell of that paint bubble will dry and it encapsulates the paint on the inside, and it's still gooey. And the same thing in the parking lot striping business. If you put too much paint on an arrow or a parking line and then a car rolls over, it smears it, and then it transfers to the car tire, and the car tire will transfer to the paint, and that's what we call hot tire pickup. And it looks really, really awful. So when I see a lot of hot tire pickup on, and you'll see tracks, it looks like a dirty tire rolled over the parking line, that's what we call hot tire pickup. And when I see that, I immediately know it's a beginner doing this parking lot striping, and he's got either the wrong tip or a very old tip in the machine. So keep that in mind. So we're gonna wrap up the parking lot striping part of this and get into the power washing business. Power washing entry-level machines. I've gotten this question 2 or 3 times just in the last few days since Christmas, and I definitely understand the the anxiety with trying to buy one of these machines and choosing the right one. Um, this is my personal preference, of course. I've been through dozens and dozens of power washer machines, and I know everything about them. So what I recommend, an entry level machine, is really, really simple. I recommend a Honda engine and a cat pump. Now, that being said, if you can't get the cat pump, the GP pump is really good, or the AR pump is the next best in line. Anything other than that, those three pumps, I kind of stay away from. Of course, I ran the Comet pumps. I ran just about every pump out there, and I've had a lot of trouble with a lot of them. Now, the cat pump is the CAT. It's a blue pump in color in most cases, and it's the Cadillac of all pressure washer pumps, in my opinion, and probably most of the guys in the industry will agree. They are expensive compared to the GP pumps. The GP pump would be my second best, second choice, and then the AR pump. I'm not even trying to pronounce that. It's some Italian name, but it's called the AR pump. That'd be my third pump. And I have run the GP pump and the AR pump thousands of hours on other machines with no problems, but the cat pump has never gave me any trouble. Now, what I have noticed with the GP pumps and the AR pumps, if you don't change that oil religiously in the pump about every 50 hours, they will get water in the pumps, and it will start to lose some PSI. So the cat pumps are much more forgiving, although I still recommend changing the pump oil about every 50 to 60 hours, and use cat pump oil. Use that specific oil, and it's very clearly marked. Don't use any other oils in those pumps. That oil is a non-detergent pump, but oil. That pump takes non-detergent oil, but there again, not all non-detergent oils are created equally. So make sure you check the manufacturing label for that whenever you do change it. So I recommend that cat pump. If you're gonna go with a 4x4, is what I call it, on a rattle cart, something little on wheels with a pull rope. Lowe's, Home Depot, they both sell a version of the 4x4s, and it's Honda GX390. You might not know the horsepower rating on that, but back in the old days, it was rated as 13 horsepower, one cylinder. Probably still around that 12, 13 horsepower rating, I'm sure. Now, those will be with a direct drive cat pump. I clearly see those on sale right now. I think Home Depot and Lowe's both got them for under $1,300 plus. I think under $1,300 period. That's with tax, depending on your area. Now that cat pump with that Honda engine, I've used those for years. They're perfect. They 4x4, 4,000 psi, 4 gallons a minute. That's of course at the pump. You put 100 feet of pressure hose on it, it's a little bit less. So that being said, if you're looking at a pressure washer, the entry level, and you're looking at a 3 gallon per minute machine, that's at the pump. Once you put 150 feet of hose on it, or 200 feet of hose, you might be down to 2 gallons a minute. That's just, you can get it done, but that's just hard to, it's hard to recommend something that small for entry level. It's going to take you forever to wash a house. You're not going to be getting paid enough, and the job might not come out right, and you're going to get frustrated and quit. And that machine's going to end up in a garage with a bunch of stuff stacked on top of it. So go ahead and get you a good machine. That way you'll feel good about it. You can do the job in relatively a timely manner, and you'll look more professional. You're not out there with a little buzz thing, So 4 gallons a minute, 4,000 PSI. Obviously, the 4 gallon minute is more important than the PSI. I did see one machine that was running like 4.5 gallons per minute. I think it was rated like at 3,500 PSI. It had a cat pump. That's a winner. Go for it. As long as it's got that Honda engine, GX390, pull rope with a cat pump, you can't beat it. I don't care if it's on a Simpson cart, if it's on a DeWalt cart, or whatever cart they put it on. That doesn't matter. You're looking at the Honda engine and the cat pump. And again, that cat pump's like a light baby blue color. I don't think I have anything in here that color. Now the GP pump is also a good pump. You can probably find one of those for around that Honda engine GX390 with that GP pump, probably for about $1,100. That's not a bad deal, I would say go for it if it's a GP pump or AR pump, but I would probably get that extended warranty just in case you might end up needing it. Most of the issues with those is the unloader. Usually there's a little spring mechanism in an unloader. A lot of times those break and you'll lose pressure. So that might be something you might want to think about if you got a pressure washer that's lost pressure completely. Like it's running and you pull the trigger and it's just a little stream of water. A lot of times it's that unloader spring either broke or whatever. And so that's some of the issues with it. And if you're not familiar with repairing them, it's good to have that little extended warranty deal on it. And of course the AR pump, again, that's a decent pump. It wouldn't be my first choice, but you know, if you got to, you got to. Now, another issue with those 4 gallon per minute for 1,000 PSI machines is your downstream injector. You're gonna have to replace that downstream injector almost immediately. Try to bypass it. Try to get you a good, decent, high quality downstream injector. Something that draws 1-to-10 ratio. And you know, you might could use that little downstream injector with it for a minute, but I would quickly try to figure out how to bypass it or add another one to it so you can do your downstream. And then of course with that machine, it's a must. I know they're expensive, but to me they're worth their weight in gold. I would get an XJet immediately along the time, at the same time that I get that machine. So that XJet's gonna be your best friend. It's worth its weight in gold to, you know, to have that on a truck. And we can talk about that later in another video, how to use that XJet. And then another entry level equipment for this setup would be maybe a 20-inch surface cleaner. I have seen some guys run a 24-inch surface cleaner on it. I think anywhere from 18 to 21-inch surface cleaner is going to work good on his 4 gallon per minute, 4,000 PSI. And you could probably get those for about $350 from Lowe's or Home Depot. GP makes a good little hammerhead 18, I think it's either 18 or 19-inch surface cleaner. Phenomenal for that 4,000 PSI, 4 gallons a minute. You can really knock out some square footage. Probably square footage on that's probably about 2,500 square feet per hour on that 4 gallon per minute machine. So there again, that kind of lets you know my line of thinking on equipment. 4 gallons a minute, 4,000 PSI is entry-level machine. Obviously, we run here at Davidson Pressure Wash paying much larger equipment than that, and we get some larger, even some, for 2020, we got some other machines we're gonna have custom built. Some probably put out anywhere from about 15 to 17 gallons per minute per machine, hopefully. So I'm talking to some pump manufacturer here locally that is probably gonna work on something for me towards springtime. Flow is our friend. You know, if you do an entry-level machine, that 4 gallons a minute is about the best you're gonna be able to get to run off a garden hose. If not, you have to do a buffer tank, and then you have the expense of setting up a trailer and you know, all that, which is doable, you know, if you get like a 5.5 gallon machine. So think about that when you're looking for entry-level machine, and that maybe give you some hints on it. So in this talk, we talked about entry-level parking lot striping equipment and entry-level pressure washing equipment. If you want some more information from me personally on type of equipment, if you're starting out new, feel free to reach out to me. If you've been in the industry a while and you've reached that 8 to 10 year plateau and you are still running the 4 gallon per minute machines, you know, maybe you already have some established routes, you already have some established clients that you repeat, that you're doing every 6 months, some of them quarterly. We got some residentials that go quarterly even. You may want to step up to that 8 gallon per minute machine, and like we did years ago, and I'll tell you, it was the best move I'd ever made. And you know, I was kind of at that plateau, and once I moved into that larger equipment, I was more competitive with my pricing. I was able to go tackle larger jobs and do them quicker, and you know, just all around a very good move for our business. So think about that. You know, if you still running those 4 gallon per minute machines, and if you established power washer guy, you might want to go ahead and try to move up before springtime into some larger equipment. And if you're looking for some of that larger equipment, get in touch with me. I know some people out of Florida that's got the best pricing around from what I've seen. They are expensive, and there's a lot that goes with it, but you know, that is the cheapest I've seen around. Is good, high quality machines and equipment. So I'm gonna hop off of here. We are about to run to town and take care of some business and get a few things done. out in town. So if y'all need my help personally, my phone number is 985-345-0778. Again, my name is Billy Davis, and I'm the owner of Davis Pressure Wash Painting. Thanks for watching.